Yeah, I think that's really important to listen to your body. I mean, there's going to be days where you're not feeling it. One thing, and obviously we're going to get into it for the nutrition assessment, but I love that you are big into intuitive eating. Like I said, we'll touch more base on that, but like just being able to listen to your body, not only nutritionally, like, hey, like, do I need to fuel or is this, like what I actually need right now? But man, training wise for sure, especially when you're a go getter, because it's so hard to not train, to actually take that day off or to be mid workout like you were explaining and then just pull the plug, be like, yep, this is not it today.
Yeah, it's really important because not only for workouts, just in general, it's just being able to fuel for what I need and to know when I'm not fueled, to know when the body is not there, to be able to, because I've pushed limits in the past, to be able to ramp up the engines. I always call it firing the engines and just be like, "Oh yeah, today is not that day." Like this is different than, I haven't eaten properly, or I've been pushing in a workout, the muscles are sore, and there's a difference between knowing when the muscles are sore and when you can push through and when it's just not going to be beneficial whatsoever.
No doubt. I like how you explain that, like with the engines. I always, when I was doing the distance running thing, I'd always like at a mile in, almost like I was taking off in a spacecraft. I was like, how are my feet feeling? How are my toes feeling? How are my ankles feeling? How are my knees feeling? Like in my head, and just like making that mind body connection. And I'd be like, all right, all systems go. Like we're ready to get after it. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think before we go on, I just have a little something. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Alex Ramosi. It might have been you at UHP. But diminishing returns is still returns. And
mm,
so, like, there is times to where chasing big goals, big dreams, big aspirations is going to require me, you, whoever in the world, it's going to require you to do things when you don't feel 100% or even when you don't feel 80%. But when you're creeping more towards 50%, that's when I know to like let off the gas pedal, take a day, eat some good food, make sure I'm getting my water in, get 8.5 hours of sleep like I did last night, and just get refreshed. Because I know when I'm pushing limits, like there is going to be a point of diminishing returns, but when it gets too detrimental is when I have to let off the gas and take that day to kind of recover.
yeah, absolutely. In the military, they told us you have to know the difference between actual injury and soreness, because there is that really fine line, especially when you're training at as high of a level as you are, where, yeah, you're going to be a little bit sore occasionally when you jump into a training session, but, you need to know when to push it. Like, hey, I can push past this soreness. It's not an injury. It's not going to make things worse and really derail me. But yeah, I really like that. That wasn't me at UHP, because that's the first time I'm hearing it. I do like that, and I think it is important to know that balance. I mean, gosh, some of the best training days I've had is when I've had forced downtime for several days, right? And mentally, I'm going nuts. I'm like, oh man, I need to be training. I need to be training. It's like 3 days off that that I didn't want to take off, and then that consecutive fourth day hitting a session and just feeling like unstoppable. And I think the more times you experience that, the more you buy in to believing how important those recovery days really are. Um, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's
So
really hard as an athlete because I just want to keep on going, and sometimes it's like bashing your head against the wall. It's like, ooh, this wall we need to take a break, and
sometimes the wall does win.
it does. But that's when in the book, The Last Lecture, Randy Posh talks about, he's like, walls are put in your life for a reason. It's to test how bad you really want whatever you're going after. So the wall does win temporarily until you find a new strategy to get around, over, under, however you're going to go through it to get past that wall. And that's a perfect segue into, why I want to do this this little podcast, these coaching sessions. This is coaching session number one, because nutrition is a big wall for me, And you being a registered dietitian, I know to get over a big wall to chase the goals, dreams, and aspirations that I want, I need help.
Mm.
And in the past, I never would have asked for help. I would have just been like, we're going to figure it out. I guess I'll read some more, maybe listen to it, or my favorite, wing it. And I've gotten really good at winging it, but I've also realized that I left a lot on the table. And this year, 2026, is not something that I want to leave anything on the table. I want it all. So I figured to outsource nutrition to the best of my ability and work together, learn a lot, and, give people an insight on what it truly takes to crush your goals mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. I think it's really important.
No doubt. Well, and one thing that I think a takeaway that I get from that, because I'm the same way when it comes to things that I really am interested in, like when it comes to training, for example. Like I outsource my training. Like I follow a training plan that I don't create, even though I love it and I'm fascinated by, what goes into proper training plans, just physical fitness in general. I just don't have the time capabilities to sit down and schedule out a full year of training for myself. Um, that time for me is much better spent practicing, nutrition and getting better and sharpening the blade, which is my actual career. Um, but it's tough for me when it comes to things that I'm interested to not outsource it because it's like, well, it's not that I mean, don't get me wrong. There's definitely a bit of ego and a bit of stubbornness, but mostly it's because genuinely I'm curious. Like I want to learn more about it. I want to get better at that skill set. But if you're into, like, I'm just going to use me for an example, hunting and snowboarding and surfing and athletic training and jujitsu and XYZ else, there's not enough time in a day to get better at all of those things. So you gotta pick and choose. And yeah, and I'm very excited to get working with you because I think that of all athletes I work with, like you have very big ambitions. The events that you're going to be training for, the Norsemen primarily, which is kind of why we started this, is huge. But pulling a car for an entire marathon, right? Doing biking across the United States. Like these are huge athletic endeavors, which is awesome because not only are they huge athletic endeavors, but they're different and very unique in their own ways. And they're going to require different strategies with nutrition, not just for the day of, but training up to and keeping your body in a really good place to make sure that you can actually accumulate the volume and stimulus of training needed to successfully accomplish those events. So yeah, I think that segues right into kind of starting our first session. What do you think?
I mean, let's Marker,
We
let's
ready? We
go.
ready to do
I'm ready to
it?
roll, baby. We got the mics rolling. We're good.
All right. So I'm just gonna minimize our screen here a little bit on my end, um, and then I'm gonna pull up the practice platform. So thank you for filling out those forms. What did you think of the forms? Obviously, for me as your coach, I have you fill all that out because, it's almost like I'm the detective and you're just giving me free clues, right? So the more clues I can get, the better I can paint this overall picture and the better place we can be in when we start. But did you take anything away from the forms? Sometimes, when I strategically ask questions, it should be a point of reflection.
Yeah, especially when it came to the nutrition factor, I I found that when I'm meal prepping, I'm in a much better spot. That comes with having the proper food in my refrigerator, which I think I mentioned on there. It's just like, yeah, I actually have to have the food ready to go to be able to prep it. Otherwise, I'm constantly like, oh, what do I use? Right now, I do know that I have to cut back my caffeine to get
Yeah,
back to normal levels. And
yeah. When I saw 800 milligrams, I was like, all right, noted. I get it, right? I mean, I totally get it, man. I got a young kid at home. Like, if you think I stay within the recommendations every day,
well,
you would be
yeah, the
incorrect.
problem is I don't have a kid, so what's my excuse other than the fact that I always lean on like, oh, I'm training a lot, I'm burning through it. Like I in order to continuously to get better to show up for my clients, like I need that little extra bump. But I also do know that I want my heart to be fine going into my later years. So I noticed that I need to cut that back, and then to continuously hit my water intake, especially with all the electrolytes and things that are needed because of all the endurance training. That really stood out to me too. Oh, and I need more vegetables
And possibly some fruit. But
and
we'll
some
but
fruit.
but we'll get there.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
So it was
So
really beneficial for me to realize, like, oh, like normally I do have nutrition on lock, especially when I'm chasing a big goal, but I have a lot of adjustments, micro adjustments possibly, but adjustments that need to be made in order to accomplish what I want to accomplish.
no doubt, and I know we talked about this prior to starting this whole thing, but somebody at your level as an athlete, right? You're like a race car. So your diet, like, this isn't new to you. Like, you're fueling your body mostly appropriately, but to accomplish now these even bigger athletic feats, we need to fine tune the race car, right? This is a very precision oriented approach to nutrition. And of course, there are going to be some underlying, probably more generalized trends that we'll identify, that, like caffeine, right? Like, um, but we'll get there when we start talking about your diet a little bit. So the place I want to start first, and this is the reason on my assessment form why I have it first, is I have you list your current weight, and then I have you list a goal weight if it applies to you. And it looks like there is a 15-pound weight cut that you would like to make. So we need to discuss this first, because if we are going to attack body composition with the training schedule you have laid out, we have to be very strategic about it, because if we're gonna meet that, you're going to be in a caloric deficit. When you're in a caloric deficit, your body is intentionally going to be under fueled. So we want to make sure that we do that under fueling at a time that won't lead to increased illness risk, increased injury risk, poor performance during actual event. So we got to find a very strategic time to do this. So with all that being said, is that accurate? Are we trying to reach 190 before going into the Norseman?
Yes, that is the goal, and it might have been a little ambitious. I'd be perfectly fine with 195. Just knowing from my experience of running 7 marathons, 7 continents in 1 week last year, is doing that much endurance volume. I sat around 200 to 205 at that time as well. Doing that much endurance volume puts a heavy tax and a heavy toll on the body, muscles, on the ligaments, on my joints, especially with everything that I've been through leading up to this. Going into the world's toughest triathlon at a lighter weight uh, is something that I want to do. So we're going to have to be very strategic with how we use carbohydrates to fuel properly and recover properly, I'm guessing is where you're going to go, while staying in that caloric deficit.
Well, more so. So, like, when I work with Modern Athlete, we have everything training wise broken down in a year long plan. I just spoke about this on a podcast. So it's like a traditional athlete. Okay. If we want to think about, we'll use football for an example. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say you have a professional football player. The best time to change body composition is postseason, right? You're the furthest away at that point from actual game days that count, that we can sacrifice performance a little bit, because the intention is, once we reach that desired body composition, then there are twofold benefits, right, at that you know newer physique. So we need to decide what's the postseason for you, right? Like, you have a lot of events between now and the Norseman, High Rocks, Spartan, so on and so forth. So are you okay with starting this intentional cut? And this isn't going to be something that's going to be drastic, right? The cut is going to be hopefully to a point where it's almost barely noticeable, right? I still need you to perform on a daily basis and recover adequately, but we need to put you into a slight deficit that will actually cause your body to start shedding a little bit of weight. Is now a good time to just start this process?
Well, they say the best time to plant a tree is 25 years ago. The second best time is right now. So because we do have about 5 months
Yes.
to hit the Norseman, I would say, like, this is the perfect time.
Okay.
That way we can, get to the new homeostasis, i.e. 190, 195, to where we're comfortable, and then work off that build from there the last 2-3 months leading up to the race. That way we're going in strong and fueled.
Okay. So what we're going to do then, just so you kind of have an idea of what's going to happen, is the first objective we have together is we really need to get a good idea of where your maintenance calories are. Because your training volume's so high, it might be a little tricky, and that's okay. We're going to use averages based on some data we get from tracking food and training intensity. And we're going to see, okay, my weight has stayed here relatively, within, let's say, 2 to 5 pounds over the past month. I've consistently eaten on average this caloric intake. From there, we'll strategically put you into a slight deficit. Ideally, to ensure that you can still maintain as much lean mass as possible, if not even build some lean mass, that deficit will likely be around 10% of those maintenance calories. That's the deficit we're going to put you into. Now, we want to obviously trend this and make sure we're, keeping our eyes on all of these subjective measures, your energy levels, how you're performing, if you have certain, standards that you have in the gym, be it, 1 rep maxes, so on and so forth, making sure that we're staying close to those, even though we'll be in a deficit. I was speaking with a client recently, and I did my weekly check-in like normal. How are things going? He was disappointed because he also is in a body composition change phase. That is the overall mission that we're working on at the moment. And he went for a 1 rep max on bench, and he didn't get a new PR. And he was upset about it. And I had to explain to him, we're in a position where we're under fueling our body intentionally so we can change your body composition. It is not surprising to me at all that you didn't all of a sudden get the best you've ever gotten when you are in a calorie deficit. And I think that's really important to understand, because of course we want both best of both worlds. We still want to be our best, but we also want to lose weight and body fat and gain muscle. We want all the good stuff. Well, we're going to have to sacrifice something. Somewhere along the line, sacrifices are being made. I know you are obviously well-versed in that, but that's going to be the plan. We're going to try to iron out your maintenance calories, and then once we're there, we're going to strategically put you in a deficit. We're going to do a little bit more food tracking than maybe you're used to, because it sounds like, based on your assessment forms, you primarily intuitively eat. And if you'd like to go about it that way, we can.
No, I just wanted to get into that a little bit. Because I am not against food tracking. I actually think it's a very valuable tool. I have all my personal training clients track for a couple of weeks. That way, kind of the same thing. That way we know where they're at, how to make adjustments, things like that. Little history on me. Went from 2013 to 2017, I was consistently bulimic. That's where for people that don't know, it's where you eat a lot of food and you purge it out. Or even you just eat some crappy food, not even a lot of food, and you purge it out. That had a lot to do with my self-esteem, a lot to do with where I was not being able to handle failure, a lot of things, right? The fitness industry as a whole at that time, where I was when I got into it, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've gotten much more comfortable tracking food to the point to where, like, oh, this is a metric. This is something that we can figure out, and then it's just a data point, and it's something that we're going to use going forward. With that being said, the most I tend to track is like 2 months in a row, 3 months in a row, and then my mind is just like, hey, dude, you're getting a little bit too into the weeds. That way, I'm just being completely open and honest with you as my coach and as my RD, that like it is something in the past that has overtaken my mind, overtaken my world, and I would really like to avoid that.
Absolutely. First of all, I am so happy and thank you for sharing that about yourself on such a public platform, because, especially with males, it is such a taboo, it seems like, to experience what you went through. But males have eating disorders, just as much as females do. We just don't talk about it a lot. I think there's just as much pressure for any male in the fitness industry or that is athletic to have these, physique ideals, and we will go to the extremes to reach them. Really, thank you for sharing that. And absolutely, I have this, if you didn't already notice, going through the beginning of the online course. When it comes to food tracking, I do always explain if this is something you're not comfortable with, if you have a history of an eating disorder, if it's something you're just not interested in, there is a workaround. We don't need to do it. It's really effective for expediting the process because it can give us some really, really quick trends, right? If you're overeating by 700 calories every single day, well, that's important. That's good to know, right? Because we can catch it quick. Or if your macro splits are like 10% protein, 60% fat, like yeah, you're not building muscle as fast as we want. Well, no wonder why.
Yep.
And for those reasons, it can be extremely helpful. Now, did you have a chance to go through the first 3 modules in phase 1?
I did not, and that is 100%
No,
my fault.
no problem.
I think you sent me a text regarding the intake forms, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll get to those, and then I was just like, oh, that's a few more than I thought.
Yeah, there is a lot.
So I'll own
and
that, and I'll be better going forward. I promise.
No worries at all. So when you get actually into the first part of phase 2, there is a module for human metabolism that is all on intuitive eating and how to do it in a performance setting. Because traditional intuitive eating works really well in sedentary populations, right? Like the average person that isn't super athletic, right? Because they can listen to what their body's telling them, and it tends to work out quite well. Athletes, on the other hand, it doesn't always work well because the needs are so high, and extreme exercise can start tampering with our normal hunger cues, satiety cues. You may underfuel listening to your body because your body isn't hungry, right? Like a lot of it, people experience this immediately following a challenging workout. They're like, I can't drink my protein shake right now, or I can't eat anything because I just don't have the appetite for it. I'm nauseated, so on and so forth. So being able to be intentional with numbers, right? Like actually planning, possibly tracking around that training window, really, really important. And then being more flexible throughout the day to listen to your body, right? Like, hey, I know what's on my plate training wise today. I probably don't need to eat that many carbohydrates in this meal. We'll use the athletes' plates as references and guides there, but you will get to that point. The one thing I did want to talk about though, and before we continue along this assessment form, is if you can on your computer go over to your portal within Practice Better, pull up the Tactical Fueling System course, and then there's a module titled Guiding Principles. I'd like you to go there and then scroll down to the Performance Nutrition Hierarchy.
Let me get her here. Just gotta log on. Ooh, I need my.
No problem.
There we go. Beautiful. All right. We got our initial steps, module. Which module were we looking at here?
The Guiding Principles. It'll be in phase 1.
The module 1, the metabolism and diet.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It should be the phase prior to that.
Oh, that's phase 2. Sorry.
That's phase
Guiding
2, baby.
Principle. There we are. That's on me.
But it's good to know that you have access.
I swear I was in the
phase
Air
2.
Force. I was just I swear. Well, this is supposed to be what we're doing. All right. I'm at food philosophy. Where are we going now?
One more down, you'll see the Performance Nutrition Hierarchy. And I want you just to go to the visual graph of the pyramid. Okay.
The pyramid.
So
beautiful.
So everything in this module, and I'll let you go through this in your own time, right? Everything, these 3 main guiding principles is really what plays a role in every food decision we make. The first one is your food philosophy. Okay, and I won't spend too much time here. I think, since we're going to be speaking weekly, we'll probably dive into this more. But things like your background, right? The foods you ate growing up, your culture, everything around you, all of those, either consciously or subconsciously, are going to have an impact on why you gravitate towards certain foods and maybe why you avoid others. So that will play a role in everything that you put into your body. The next one that hopefully you will be more intentional about after going through this course is this second guiding principle, which is the Performance Nutrition Hierarchy. Especially for individuals that are on social media, it's so easy to get wrapped up in the nuance and these strategies and tactics that are so extreme. Be it some crazy new supplement, be it some crazy diet like the carnivore diet, These extremes do not have a place if the lower tiers of the hierarchy aren't met. So, for a visual for our listeners, okay, the performance nutrition hierarchy is a pyramid made up of 3 tiers. The base of the pyramid are the things that need to be done consistently on a daily basis, and the things that are elevated on the pyramid, tier 2 and tier 1, are things that still have importance, but that is only in the context of the lower tier beneath it being met, those criteria being met. So on the base of the pyramid, Sully, can you read out what are the 3 tenets that need to be done consistently on a daily basis?
Yep. So for tier 1, we have adequate fueling, which is eating enough, adequate hydration, and appropriate macronutrient distribution.
Absolutely. So I want to clarify one thing, and you'll obviously see it going through the course, but eating enough, that means eating enough, which means not overeating and not undereating. Most people think when I say eating enough, they go, "Oh, I'm definitely, like I'm not undereating." But you can overeat, and that's also not eating enough, right? We need enough, meaning right around that maintenance calorie load.
I can tell you that I struggle with this a lot, because I do blame it on my bulimic days, is because I've trained my body to do so much with not a lot in it. And when you're in an extreme environment, specifically like an event, you can't stop. It doesn't matter if you're hungry, you're thirsty, as long as your muscles aren't cramping to the point to where it's shutting down, you keep on going, even if you're not eating enough. So I can tell you right now that this is a place that I struggle.
Well, and we're going to work on that together, right? And that's one point of tracking that we should be able to highlight right away is I'll be able to look at what you have on the docket for the day training wise, match it to what you're intaking, and give you some honest feedback like, hey, man, to be honest with you, based on your body weight, based on this training volume, even at your training status, having trained and competed for so long, like that's just not enough food for you. Like you need to fuel more because under fueling consistency leads to relative energy deficiency in sport or REDS, which has a whole bunch of negative consequences that come along with it. If we think long term, right, we can take one example. If we're not eating enough food and our body from performing at such a high level is demanding even more than the normal person, things will start to deteriorate. We can think about our bones as one. If we're not consuming enough calcium, right, through our diet, well, our body is going to get enough calcium. Where do you think it's getting it from?
Is it pulling it from muscle?
It's pulling it from your
protein?
bones. From your bones.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
I was
your
thinking
head's in the right place.
I was thinking to make more. Yeah. You're right. You're the
If
RD.
I was to ask you that same question about protein, then absolutely. If you're not feeding your body enough amino acids, your body will pull it from muscles. But yeah, so calcium, if you're not getting enough through your body needs to maintain balance or homeostasis. It's going to pull that calcium from your bones to maintain that adequate calcium. Well, over time, that's going to put you at increased risk for fracture, right? So, and that can be seen in a relatively short period of time. Female athletes tend to experience that at a higher level than male athletes, but nonetheless, it goes to show that we really want to make sure we are staying adequately fueled. So that is the first part of that lower tier of the pyramid. From there, it's adequate hydration. We don't need to spend too much time there. I think that should go without saying is the importance of staying hydrated throughout the day is important for so many different things, right? Every chemical reaction in your body takes place in water, essentially. So the final piece there is just appropriate macronutrient distributions. This is important because depending on how you're training and what you're training for, that's going to look a little bit differently. If you came to me and you're like, yep, we're training for, purely a strongman event. Well, our carbohydrates are going to be lower than what they're going to be for you training for the world's hardest triathlon, where carbohydrates are going to be elevated because this is essentially an ultra endurance event. So the macronutrient distributions need to match your training style and the event that you'll be training for. From there, once we have the base of this pyramid ironed out on a day-to-day basis and you're feeling really good and we're consistent, then we can start to work on consistency on the tier up from there, which is micronutrient intake and fiber intake. Once we feel like those are dialed in, then we get to the top of the pyramid. That's the sexy stuff. What are the tenets in that top for our listeners?
In the top tier, or are we skipping right over tier 2?
Yep.
Yep. So tier 3 is nutrient timing and strategic supplementation.
Yep. So this is, hey, I've got this planned training for 2 hours today. Okay. Well, Sully, I hope, like we're talking about your pre workout now. How many grams of carbohydrates are you going to consume going into that workout? What form of carbohydrates are you consuming? What intra workout do you have planned at that 90-minute mark or maybe that 60-minute mark to get you through the next hour to that 2 hour completion time? What's our post workout plan? What do we have? What if you're not hungry? What's our backup plan? Do we have a contingency? That nutrient timing is super important for overall performance. But if it's in the context of you're not eating enough throughout the day, you're dehydrated, your macronutrient splits are crap, that nutrient timing is not going to make that big of a difference. But if all the other things, all your other ducks are in a row, so to speak, that is when that nutrient timing will really pay dividends and stand out to be extremely effective. And we're going to get there. So again, without spending too much time here, I just want you to keep this pyramid in your mind and know that we're really going to be focusing on the base as we get started here to make sure that that is done consistently. You have to master the basics before you can become an expert, a master, practitioner in nutrition. So, any questions on that?
No, I love it. It's the old adage of, if you want to build a house, you have to build the foundation first. So I'm here for it.
Exactly. Exactly. So, moving on. Going through your assessment form, I appreciate you completing the quiz, filling out the self-assessment on your own, knowledge base of macronutrients, micronutrients, human metabolism. Hopefully all those numbers go up from where they're at. That's the whole point of running you through the educational course as we go through coaching. Quick question on supplementation. I didn't know if the 4 you had listed were all you take or if it ran out of space. So what I have so far is your Bum pre-workout, the first form clear, the first form ignition, and the first form magnesium. Is that currently all the supplements you take?
Currently, yes, that's all I take. I do have extra. It's first form level 1. It's their sustained assimilation protein. It's not their whey protein isolate. So I do have 4 containers of that on top of my fridge that when I am tracking and consistent and need extra protein, I do use, but I haven't been using it recently. Normally I mix that with like a yogurt, throw that in some cereal or something like that, some oatmeal, and it just gives me a nice little sustained assimilation protein. It lasts a little bit longer than the isolate. So I do have that on deck. I just haven't been taking it recently.
No problem. And honestly, from a practitioner standpoint, I'm more worried, or not worried, but I'm more interested in knowing, are you taking any multivitamins? Anything that could really lead to a potential risk if we consume too much of it down the road. And it doesn't sound like you're doing any of that. The other things that stand out to me, and we'll dive into this a little bit, but on your dietary recall, it reports that seafood is 1 time a week. I don't know how consistent that is, but 1 time a week. And then you're not supplementing with any omega 3s. So that to me is an automatic, like, okay, let's dive into this a little bit. Obviously, you're going to cover macronutrients in depth in the education portion, but having, heard me speak at UHP, and I'm sure you're aware, those omega 3s are really important. And if we're not getting it from a really good food source like seafood, being an omnivore like you are, our next best place to go is supplementation if you're not willing to increase your seafood intake.
Yeah, basically I love seafood. I love seafood that's prepared for me, and that's where I struggle because I do not like my house smelling like fish. And normally when I do get seafood, it's sushi. So I would definitely say I'd have to add that omega-3 supplementation in. First Form, it's the company that I use a lot. I'm wearing their shirt here. They do have something called Full Mega. I'll get you the information on that. That way you can kind of
Yes.
give me the go, no go for launch for that one.
Yeah, so when it comes to like fighting inflammation, okay, because a lot of people go, oh, I take omega 3s because it's going to improve my inflammation. If we look at the actual research, there's not a strong correlation to like directly impacting inflammation. But what we do know is if you consume far too many omega 6 fatty acids and far too few omega 3s, that can lead to an inflammatory state. And getting that balance closer to 1 to 1 is part of like an anti-inflammatory dietary pattern. So it's not that the omega-3 is like directly combating inflammation. It's more so that it's adding to a better balance throughout the day, and that is helping to keep, over like being in an overly inflammatory state throughout the day. So we'll talk about possibly adding that, and that would be a good one. The other one of concern is going to be vitamin D. Because I know you live in the Midwest and now it's winter time, I would highly recommend hopping on vitamin D. And you don't need to take much. The reason vitamin D is an important one, really for most people, is A, we spend a lot of time indoors. B, if you live above that 37th parallel where it's cold in the wintertime, or even if you're outside, you don't have a ton of exposed skin. So that's the reason why supplementing is good. In addition to that, we don't get vitamin D through food. So you get a little bit maybe in milk that's fortified, or orange juice that's fortified. You get some through mushrooms, but not nearly enough to meet your daily need. In addition to that, we have up to 4,000 IUs a day. That's a safe intake level. Recommendation is to get about 1,000 a day, right? Maybe even less, maybe 800, depending who you are. So if you can go all the way up to 4,000, but the recommendation is only 800, well, gosh, what's the risk in taking 1,000 IUs a day, right? It's safe, and you probably need it. So because it is so incredibly important for things like your bone health, I would also recommend adding that to your stack.
That's awesome. And it's really funny that you say that, because I was literally talking to somebody yesterday and they were asking if I was on a vitamin D supplement through the winter. And I was like, oh, no, I'll probably start that next year because it's starting to get warm here in St. Louis. And then, of course, we have like a 48-degree day. The sun is shining a little bit, but the UV index isn't there. So it's just like, funny that you say that. I should probably not kick the can to next year. I should probably do it this year.
Yeah, and truthfully, even if you're on, gosh, even in the summertime, take 500 IUs a day just to make sure you're covering your bases, right? Unless you literally live outside with your shirt off all day, odds are you are at higher risk for deficiency. Now, of course, that would be evident in blood work. If I had you go to your primary or sent you out to a third-party lab, we could check your vitamin D status and get, a number tomorrow. And in some cases, if you are deficient, right, your primary would put you on something as high as maybe 10,000 IUs a day to quickly saturate your vitamin D. But again, just in an essence of caution, especially with your training demand, let's get you on some vitamin D. We'll keep it low dose to start, maybe 1,000 IUs a day, obviously with the intention of you continuing to get sunlight as much as possible as soon as the weather gets nice.
Awesome. Yep. So I got my omega-3 and I got my vitamin D.
Excellent. And we'll start there. And then as we continue to work together, we'll possibly identify maybe other gaps. And if we're not able to meet those gaps through a food first approach, then we can start discussing maybe doing some strategic supplementation.
I'm really happy you said that, because the people that are following along, like Erik is all about food first approach. And he just simply recommended 2 supplements right there because he identified a gap by looking at my nutrition that I gave him. And I think it's really important to communicate that, is like, you're not just like, you get a supplement, you get a supplement. You've identified gaps that actually need to be fixed in order to accomplish the goal that I want to accomplish. It's not just, here, let's just supplement this because we're going to supplement it. If I want to eat more fish, then I don't necessarily have to eat or take an omega-3 fatty acid.
Exactly. And the days that I eat seafood, for example, like I skip taking my omega supplement, right? Because I got it through food. Now, I also like seafood. It is something that I also could probably do a better job of preparing for myself, but I'm the only member of my family that eats it. So that makes it difficult when we're doing weekly meal prep and so on and so forth to be like, it's like a kid that has to eat something different every meal. It's like, I don't want to be the family member that has to have something different. So I'll eat seafood when we go out to eat, and I'll occasionally treat myself to it. But yes, I supplement in omega-3 too for those reasons. But to your point, we're always going to try to go food first if possible, because when we strategically supplement, it's really good, it's helpful, but our bodies absorb nutrients better through food, and you always get something extra. Vitamin C is a great example, and I know I talk about this down at UHP, but you can take a vitamin C supplement to get vitamin C, or you could eat, an orange And in an orange, you're not just getting vitamin C, but you're getting other vitamins and minerals. You're getting water, you're getting fiber, you're getting some phytochemicals. So it's coming as this complete package that's just outstanding, opposed to just a single isolated nutrient. Time and a place for a single isolated nutrient, but for the most part, we're going to try to get everything from food. So moving down the list, glad to see that you sleep so well. Really important. You said 8.5 hours last night, which is outstanding. So we're definitely going to want to keep that up. Went over your short-term goals, long-term goals, tracking on all of that. Norseman is going to be first and foremost for this coaching session. Okay. Moving on to what you described as what you would like most help with. You said, in your own words, adding variety to my nutrition and creating a plan that can fuel me during my races. So let's unpack that a little bit. To you, what does that look like in terms of variety? If I could wave a magic wand and make it all right and perfect, let's say that magic wand is simply money and you have Gordon Ramsay in your house to prepare anything you'd like. What does that look like?
I would say simple and effective food recommendations to, if we're looking at a plate, to like how to fill my plate with, this, and this to get me the nutrients and vitamins that I need to perform my best. I know you talk about having a colorful plate a lot, just for the benefits of all the micronutrients and everything like that. I can tell you right now, my plate isn't exactly the most colorful. I've always looked at it as proteins, fats, and carbs. What's most effective? How do I get here like this? Sometimes, my Fruity Pebbles is my color. So I know that doesn't count. But so just kind of simple and effective ways to add to my plate in order to get the correct stimulus that'll help me perform my best.
Absolutely. So a couple things to unpack from my end there. So yes, that color is really important. And like understanding your background and where you're coming from the fitness community, it's so easy to be macrocentric, right? We're so focused on macros because that is what we're using for our physique, right? It's like my protein's this, my fat's this, my carbohydrates this. That's why we see a lot of plates that are broccoli, white rice, chicken breast. It's really easy to track, it's easy to weigh, everything's simple. Hopefully throughout our time together, you start to look at food more microcentrically. You're choosing food for things outside of the macro numbers. You're choosing food because I know that's a good source of zinc. I know that's a good source of magnesium. I know that's a great source of fiber. I know that's a great source of chlorophyll, so on and so forth. So you can start to look at food in that way. And that starts to make health food, quote unquote, really more appealing because I truly believe once you understand why a food is so beneficial and what it does inside of your body, it makes you naturally more appealed to try that food. So we're going to really work to get you into a more microcentric, viewpoint of food. In addition to that, I really want to play on that food philosophy. I want you to, especially because you had mentioned that like you don't really have any personal cultural influence in your own food. Like you haven't explored like your culture's food history, so on and so forth, but you are interested in maybe other cultures' food. That is a great way to start adding some more diversity onto our plates. I mean, if we can just think around to some really common cultures that we see here within the United States, right? Mexican culture, Asian culture, so on and so forth. We get a ton of colorful food. I mean, heck, even think about Chipotle. If you go to Chipotle, you can get probably 10 different colors on a plate, no problem, right? We got green with guacamole. We got a different green with cilantro. We've got bell peppers of different colors. We've got red onions. We've got, corn salsa with some yellows, some oranges, some pinks, so on and so forth. So, and that's because Mexican food traditionally uses all of these colorful plant foods. Really, most cultures primarily eat plant-based, right? And when I say plant-based or plant-forward, I don't mean plant only. I just mean that plants are making up predominantly the majority of the plate. Now, if we can take that approach and then add some quality, lean, animal source protein on top of that, now we've really got some powerhouse meals. The dilemma for athletes is taking this really healthy mindset of being like, yep, I'm going to get all this color, get all this fiber, so on and so forth. But on days that require so many calories, like let's say you're in a heavy training block and it was a super strenuous day, like 3 hour run, so on and so forth, your calorie goals are so high that your plates are going to start to shift. Now, half the plate is probably going to be a starchy carbohydrate, something like rice, pasta, potatoes, so on and so forth. It will be a little bit more bland. But again, intentionally, because fueling our body, if we're thinking of that performance nutrition hierarchy, is most important. In fact, it's more important than worrying about your micronutrients in the moment because your body needs to fuel. It needs the actual burnable energy to stay alive and keep things operating as they should. So we'll be able to make those decisions in the moment, and that's what I'm here to teach you exactly how to do. But in a nutshell, I call that the healthy athlete's dilemma. It's, oh gosh, like I didn't get enough fiber today because I had to eat all these starchy carbs, or oh, I had to eat added sugar, and added sugars, like I'm trying not to do that, but it's like your body needs it. Like when you're burning 5,000-6,000 calories a day, like you need things like that because you won't be able to get the volume if you were to only eat fibrous plant foods and lean protein. But anyways, that's my rant on that.
I loved it because I'm in alignment with everything that you're kind of alluding to. So I'm excited to make a few adjustments.
Perfect. And that is how we're going to get variety into your diet to really attack that goal. The second part that you've listed that you'd like most help with is just creating a plan to fuel you during your races. So yes, we will absolutely come up with a detailed fueling plan for the Norseman, right? And what I'd really like to do is do a couple mock races, or maybe use a couple events you have coming up, either High Rocks or Spartan, to really start implementing some of these intra-workout strategies so we know what works and what doesn't work. Anything that we do day of, and I know you know this, but we're saying this for the audience. Anything you do day of, we are going to have tested not just once, not just twice, but several times before we go into the event to make sure that it digests well, it causes no GI distress, it does what it needs to do in terms of giving you energy and sustainment. So we'll have everything laid out, right? From your hydration all the way through your individual food choices, carbohydrate powders, electrolyte supplementation, so on and so forth. But absolutely that will be fully dialed in. And we're going to have that plan created a while ahead of the event based on practice. So we'll definitely
Beautiful,
get there.
because the last thing I want to be is on the course and having gastrointestinal issues. I have had that before, so let's avoid that at all costs.
I think everyone's been there, especially when you're new to the game. It's like I remember the first marathon I ran. Like I bought a couple gels, not knowing anything about them. I just knew that I should probably take something. And you take the first one down, you're like, ooh, oh man, that's not settling too well.
A couple miles later, you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, you didn't train with it. It's like if I would have trained with it, if that would have happened on a training run, I'd been like, I'm not using that gel. I should try something else. But we're going to have all this tried out, and it's going to be fun because we're going to get to, with an event like the Norseman, we're going to have to take in a whole bunch of factors, right? Swimming, obviously it's pretty hard to carry nutrition on you when you're in the water in a wetsuit. Biking also has a lot of limitations on what you can carry because of the position you're in. Now, you do have more advantage than, let's say, swimming, and slightly more than running, unless you're wearing a vest. But all of these different parts of the event are going to require different nutrition strategies. From there, each part is going to require a different form of food. When you're 20 hours into an event, even though something tasted great at hour one, it might not have any appeal to you whatsoever. So we're going to have contingency plans and different foods that we can try out. And all that's going to be, nailed down to a T, to the gram, right? So to speak, to the milligram if we're talking sodium. So it's going to be fun. We'll get a good detailed plan there. One thing I wanted to ask about is you self-rated your diet currently as a 4 out of 10. Please elaborate.
Number one, I guess I must preface this is like I'm a hard grader on myself. It's very difficult for me. I believe in the 1 to 10 scale. It's you can't use 7, so you probably saw a lot of 6s as well. It's because I'm not using a 7 and I didn't feel confident in an 8. I always go to the lesser value if I'm just like, I could have said 5 and been like, yeah, I just have to adjust it, and then I feel much more confident. But at the same time, it's just like going over the things that we've already gone over is we're going to have to completely readjust my plate. We're going to have to completely, we're going to have to add a couple of supplements here because of the way that I've been eating, or the way that just the time of year it is with the vitamin D and not being able to get outside and all that stuff and in the sun. So I rated myself as a 4 is because I know proteins, fats, and carbs, but the micronutrients I haven't dived into much. And for what I am attempting to do this year, or what I'm going to do this year, I know that I need to make a lot of adjustments. Therefore, there's no way I can rate it as a 5 or above.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that brutal honesty is really good. And we're obviously throughout the, next, 5, 6 months, we're going to get that number up for sure. But I wanted to make sure that that wasn't a mistake. So I appreciate the further clarification there. When it comes to overall dietary trends, 1 serving of fruit a day, I had written down. 1 serving of vegetables a day, I had wrote down. 800 milligrams of caffeine, I had written down. And 1 serving of seafood, which we already discussed, I had written down. So these are some immediate places that we're going to start to work on. But before we do that, right, in the next week, before we speak again, you're going to have finished, hopefully, the introductory modules and maybe module 2, human metabolism. In addition to that, you're going to start tracking some food for me so I can really get a good picture of what you're eating day to day. I will then compare that to what your training is for the week. So next time we talk, and as we continue to talk after this initial assessment period, it's really going to be based on the foods you've eaten throughout the week and making tweaks, asking you how you're feeling, so on and so forth. So I've pretty much asked all the fill in the blanks that I needed from your initial assessment. Is there anything that we didn't get to today that you would like to mention? Questions you have? Anything along those lines?
Not really. We covered a lot. We covered a lot of the initial session, and I've gotten a couple of tweaks already. Uh, and I'm excited. Anything else that you would want me to tweak just right off the bat?
Yeah, so other than the small tweaks I already gave you, no. I actually really don't like people tweaking too much after session 1 because I need to see where they're at so I
Mm-hmm.
know what improvements to make. If you change too much, it almost gives me like a false positive, like, oh wow, your diet's looking really good. It's like, oh yeah, well, all that's new. Like last week it was, pizza, French fries, and Burger King all week, whatever. And now it's salads 3 times a day. So you'd be surprised that happens quite a bit. But
We're just excited to get started. We want to
exa-
impress you, good sir. We want to impress you.
exactly. But I got to know where you're coming from because that will really make a big difference. Because you're eating the way you're eating for a reason. I need to see that before making recommendations because there's this effect where it's like the client wants to do well by you and they want to do what you're saying, and that's almost like me giving them a diet plan. Like if I suggest something and they're like, oh yeah, for sure, I'll do that. But deep down, they're like, well, I don't really like that food, but I'm going to eat
I
it for
can't do that
Eric
long term.
because,
I don't know
yeah,
what.
exactly. Like, I need to know what you're going to do long term. Like, if you don't like a suggestion I make or you can't see yourself doing that long term, I need to know about it because the only way this is going to work is if we're building habits that you can sustain long term. And that's exactly why I don't write diet plans for people because people learn nothing and they won't be able to stick to it long term, right? It's a dead end, and I don't like selling people a false bill of goods. I sell skill sets, right? I am here to teach you and educate you and make you more proficient with your nutrition. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So yeah, so your homework essentially is going to be continue to follow the steps in the educational course that are outlined for you. It's going to be things like downloading the tracker, tracking at least 3 days a week, 2 weekdays, 1 weekend day, so I can really see if there's a difference. And then I have one dietary assessment form that essentially has you sum up those 3 days. It'll give me total calories and your macro splits as well as total fiber. So I'll be able to get a good look there. Read through all of the intro modules, like those guiding principles, really try to understand why it's in there in the first place. And then the first module you're going to be able to attack before we speak next week is going to be human metabolism. That's 3 parts. So you're going to cover what a diet actually is, total daily energy expenditure. From there, it'll cover entirely how to determine your own maintenance calories, where to put your macro splits at, and then intuitive eating as well, because eventually that's where I would like to, encourage people to get to so they don't have to continuously track every single thing they eat and drink for the rest of their lives, because that is also unrealistic and unsustainable. So you'll get through human metabolism. We're going to have a lot to talk about next week, and then from there you'll continue along the course: macronutrients, micronutrients, hydration, strategic supplementation, nutrient timing, all the fun stuff. And then I also have a whole bunch of supplemental modules. If you find yourself with extra time before we next talk, like let's say in the next 2 days you crush everything I have assigned to you, there are supplemental modules that you can start reading through. There's things on like, what happens if I get sick? What can I do nutritionally? What if I have an injury? What can I do nutritionally? Things like that. So anything that piques your interest, feel free to read through. And then Any questions you have throughout the week, feel free just to reach out via text message like, hey man, here was my training today. Here's my post workout. What do you think? Oh, here's a picture of this meal. Like, what could I do to improve this? Anything related to nutrition, feel free just to reach out and I'll be happy to answer that for you.
Hell yeah, I can't wait to get started. I'm going back to school, baby. Let's
Yeah,
go.
it's going to
I
be
love
good,
it.
man. It's going to be good. We're going to be in a really good place come late July, early August.
That's the plan, that's the goal, and that's what we're gonna do. Like, there's no doubt. I at UHP, I came up with this thing. I was talking to my friend Dylan. We were talking about goals, and I'm like, I don't set goals. I make commitments. Like, this is going
Mm,
to happen.
no doubt.
So, and we are going to iron out our nutrition, and we are going to perform to the best of my ability, and we are going to get everything that we say we are going to do done. It is a commitment. It is not a goal. Um,
Absolutely, baby.
yep.
Either come back with your shield or come back on your shield.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna do. But before we wrap up here, I just wanted to, for the people that are listening, if they wanted to reach out to you and be like, "Dude, I love this stuff. Like what you're talking about is like everything that I need." How do they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me, like, if you want some day to day content, like most people, on Instagram. Just find Grunt Grub. My logo is an apple that is also a grenade. Pretty hard to miss. You can also check out my website, which is gruntgrub.rd, as in registered dietitian.com. And there it gives you a brief breakdown of the services I offer, so on and so forth, as well as some information on the athletic training company I partner with, Modern Athlete. So you can find me there. It's the best place to get info. But again, for day to day content or quick questions, feel free to check out my Instagram. That's probably where I'm most active.
Beautiful, and I'll make sure that's linked down below. That way, if people want to easy click, there it is. People can find me at Sully Luepke on Instagram, Facebook, pretty much anywhere. I think I have a TikTok. I think I have a Twitter, but I don't really use those platforms. They're just there. And I talk to us, interact. It's going to be a good time. We're going to be coming back for session 2 next week, and we're going to be going from there. I'm going to do my homework, and you're going to see the entire evolution of fitness and nutrition blend to accomplish these big goals, dreams, and aspirations that I personally set and that Erik set throughout his life as well.
Hell yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Can't wait. Let's roll, baby. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too, brother. Me too.
Winning time.
Well, with that being said, we will catch up next week.
Already counting the moments. Bye.
All right. Take it easy, brother.